The cleaning lady found a crying baby in the trash. When she told the judge why she couldn't let it go to foster care, everyone in the courtroom started crying. Sarah's fingers tightened around the handle of her mop as she pushed it across the empty office floor. The sound of wheels squeaking against tile echoed through the dark space. 3 a.m. 5 more hours until her shift ended. Her back ached. The same spot just above her hip where it always hurt after 10 hours of cleaning. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the cubicles. "Miss Johnson?" A security guard's voice made her jump. "Still here?" "Yes, Mr. Rodriguez." Sarah straightened up, forcing a smile. 3 more floors to go. He nodded, jingling his keys. "Okay, just checking. Getting cold out there. Supposed to snow tonight?" Sarah watched him walk away, his footsteps fading down the hallway. The empty silence pressed in again. She reached for her phone, checking the time again. 3:03 a.m. Her phone screen showed a new email. Her landlord. Sarah's stomach clenched as she opened it. "Dear tenant, this letter serves as notice that effective January 1st, your monthly rent will increase by $200. Sarah's hand trembled. She shoved the phone back in her pocket. $200. With her mother's medical bills still unpaid, the extra cost might as well be $2 million. The mop handle felt cold against her palms as she pushed it harder, faster. Mom would have known what to do. But Mom was gone. 2 years now. The cancer took her quick, at least. That's what everyone said, like it was supposed to be comforting. A door slammed somewhere in the building, making Sarah flinch. She hated being alone here at night. But night shift paid an extra $1.50 per hour, and she needed every penny. She moved to the windows, wiping them down with practiced motions. 35 stories up, Manhattan glittered below. All those lights, all those people, none of them saw her up here. None of them noticed the women who cleaned their coffee cups and emptied their trash and scrubbed their toilets. "You're invisible," her supervisor had told her on her first day. That's how they like it. Sarah's reflection stared back at her from the glass. Dark circles under her eyes. Hair pulled back tight, starting to gray at the temples even though she was only 35. Mom had gone gray early too. The wind howled outside, rattling the windows. The weather report said 8 inches of snow tonight. Sarah would have to leave early to catch her buses home to Brooklyn. She moved to the next section of windows, her shoes squeaking on the freshly mopped floor. A photo on someone's desk caught her eye. A smiling family, 3 kids clustered around their parents. Sarah looked away quickly. Her phone buzzed again. Another email from her landlord, asking about this month's late rent payment. Sarah deleted it without reading. She had until Friday. Something would work out by then. It had to. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of mundane tasks. Empty trash cans, wipe down surfaces, vacuum carpets, mop floors. The motions were automatic after 3 years. Her mind wandered as her hands worked. She thought about the family photo on the desk. The mother's proud smile. The children's gap-toothed grins. At 35, Sarah had accepted she would probably never have that. No partner, no children. Just her and her mop and the empty office nights. The sound of her cleaning cart's wheels echoed off the walls as she pushed it toward the service elevator. 1 more floor to go. Then the long commute home on 3 different buses. Maybe she could catch a few hours of sleep before her afternoon shift at the restaurant started. The elevator doors opened with a soft ding. Sarah wheeled her cart inside, pressed the button for the ground floor. Her shoulders ached. Her feet throbbed in their worn shoes. Just 1 more floor. But when the elevator doors opened again, something was different. A sound, faint but unmistakable, drifted in from the loading dock. A baby crying. Sarah froze, her hand still on the cart handle. The crying came again, weak and muffled. She stepped out of the elevator slowly, leaving her cart behind. The loading dock was dark except for a single security light casting yellow shadows. The crying grew louder as Sarah moved toward the dumpsters. Her heart pounded. "Hello?" Her voice echoed in the concrete space. "Is someone there?" No answer except the crying. Sarah pulled out her phone, turning on the flashlight. The beam caught something moving in a pile of garbage bags. She approached slowly, hands shaking. The crying was definitely coming from under those bags. Sarah reached out, pulled one aside. A tiny face looked up at her, red and wrinkled. The baby was wrapped in what looked like an old t-shirt, stuffed between two garbage bags. As Sarah's light hit its face, it blinked and wailed louder. "Oh my God!" Sarah's voice came out as a whisper. "Oh my God!" She reached down without thinking, scooping the baby in her arms. It was so small, couldn't be more than a few days old. And cold, desperately cold. Sarah pulled off her coat, wrapping it around the tiny body. The baby's cries grew softer as it snuggled into the warmth. "It's okay," Sarah whispered, though her own voice shook. "It's okay. I've got you." She looked around the empty loading dock, but there was no sign of whoever had left the baby there. Just darkness and silence, and the bitter cold wind whipping in through the open bay doors. The baby whimpered, tiny fingers clutching at Sarah's shirt. She looked down at that small face, and something shifted inside her chest. A feeling she couldn't name. Sarah knew she should call the police, or take the baby to a hospital. That would be the proper thing to do, the safe thing. But as she stood there in the dark loading dock, holding this abandoned child, Sarah thought about her empty apartment, her empty life, all those nights wondering if she'd ever have a family of her own. The baby had stopped crying, falling into an exhausted sleep against her chest. Sarah felt its small heart beating against hers. She looked at her cleaning cart, still waiting in the elevator. Her shift wasn't over. She had one more floor to clean. The proper thing would be to finish her work, call the authorities, let them handle this. Instead, Sarah stepped into the elevator and pressed the button for the lobby. The baby stirred slightly, but didn't wake. "It's okay," she whispered again, though she wasn't sure who she was trying to reassure, the baby or herself. "We'll figure this out." The elevator doors closed, carrying them down into the snowy night. Sarah held the baby closer, feeling its warmth against her chest. For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible anymore. Sarah's apartment was cold when she unlocked the door. The heating had been broken for weeks, and her landlord kept making excuses about fixing it. She hit the light switch with her elbow, still cradling the baby against her chest. The clock on her microwave showed 4:17 a.m. The baby hadn't made a sound during the bus ride home, staying eerily quiet beneath her coat. Now it stirred, letting out a small whimper. "Hungry," Sarah muttered. "You must be hungry." She looked around her tiny kitchen. What did babies eat? Formula, she knew that much. But she didn't have any. The 24-hour bodega 3 blocks away might have some. The baby started crying in earnest now, its face scrunching up red. Sarah bounced it gently, the way she'd seen mothers do. "Shush. I know. Just hold on." She grabbed her emergency cash from behind the loose tile under her sink. $43 she'd been saving for the electricity bill. The baby would need more than just formula. Diapers, clothes, things she couldn't afford. Sarah's hands shook as she dialed her phone. "Hello?" Maria's voice was thick with sleep. "Maria, I need help." "Sarah?" "It's 4 a.m, Dash. I found a baby." Silence on the line. "Then you what?" "At work. In the loading dock. Someone left it in the garbage." Jesus Christ. Maria was fully awake now. "Where are you?" "Home. I don't know what I need." "Formula? Diapers?" "Don't move. I'm coming over." Sarah paced her small living room, holding the crying baby. Every few steps, a memory hit her, being 5 years old, watching her father walk out the door. Her mother's face when he didn't come back. The years of wondering what she'd done wrong. The knock came 20 minutes later. Maria burst in, plastic bags in her arms. "Let me see." She set the bags down, reaching for the baby. "Oh my God, Sarah. It's so small." "I think it's a girl," Sarah said. "I checked when I wrapped her in my coat." Maria examined the baby with practiced eyes. She had 3 kids of her own. She's newborn. Can't be more than a day or 2 old. Still has part of the umbilical cord. Sarah watched as Maria efficiently changed the baby, using the diapers and wipes she'd brought. The baby's cries softened to whimpers. "Here." Maria handed her a bottle of pre-mixed formula. "Support her head like this." The baby latched onto the bottle immediately, sucking with desperate hunger. Sarah felt tears pricking at her eyes. "Sarah." Maria's voice was gentle but firm. You have to call the police? I know. Now. Not later. Now. Sarah looked down at the baby's face. Tiny eyelashes. Perfect little nose. What will they do with her? Foster care, probably. Then adoption. The word hit Sarah like a physical blow. She remembered the foster homes her mother had threatened to send her to when times got really tough. The kids at school who disappeared into the system, coming back different. Harder. She's better off with a real family, Maria said, reading her face. People who can afford to take care of her. The baby finished the bottle, making small, contented noises. Sarah burped her the way Maria showed her. I can't just... Sarah's voice cracked. She was in the garbage, Maria. Like she was nothing. That's why you have to call the police. Her real mother might need help too. Sarah's phone felt heavy in her hand as she dialed 911. Each ring made her heart beat faster. 911. What's your emergency? Sarah swallowed hard. I found an abandoned baby. Everything happened quickly after that. 2 police officers arrived within minutes, a man and a woman. They asked questions, took notes, spoke into their radios. You did the right thing by calling us, the female officer said. Her name tag read Chun, but you should have called immediately when you found her. I know. Sarah couldn't take her eyes off the baby, now sleeping peacefully in her arms. We need to take her to the hospital, Officer Chun said. Have her checked out. You'll need to come too, make a statement. The male officer, Rodriguez, was looking around Sarah's apartment, taking in the peeling wallpaper, the ancient space heater, the general shabbiness. You live here alone? He asked. Yes. Work. Cleaning service. Night shift. He made another note in his book. Sarah saw him exchange a look with his partner. Let's go, Officer Chun said. Hospital first, then station for formal statement. Sarah rode in the back of the police car, still holding the baby. The city was starting to wake up, early morning workers hurrying through the snowy streets. The baby slept through it all. At the hospital, they took the baby away immediately. Sarah watched through glass windows as nurses examined her, cleaned her, wrapped her in a proper blanket. Miss Johnson, a social worker appeared at her elbow. Young, well-dressed, clipboard in hand. I'm Andrea Mills. We need to talk about exactly what happened. Sarah told the story again. Finding the baby. Taking her home. Calling the police. Why didn't you call immediately? Andrea's pen scratched across her paper. I don't know. Sarah wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly cold. I just wanted to make sure she was okay. Did you see anyone in the area when you found her? No. Hear anything? A car? Voices? No. More questions. More notes. Sarah's head spun with exhaustion. Through the window, she could see the baby, now lying in a clear hospital bassinet. A nurse was attaching monitoring wires to her tiny chest. What happens to her now? Sarah asked. She'll stay here until she's medically cleared, Andrea said. Then emergency foster placement while we investigate. Investigate what? Andrea's eyes were kind, but professional. Standard procedure. We need to try to locate the birth mother. Make sure there wasn't any criminal intent in the abandonment. Sarah thought about the garbage bags, the loading dock, the bitter cold. She left her to die. We don't know the circumstances. Andrea made another note. Sometimes mothers are in desperate situations. Like her own mother had been, Sarah thought. Working 3 jobs. Skipping meals so Sarah could eat. But she'd never given up. Could I? Sarah's voice caught. Could I foster her? Andrea looked up sharply. Foster? I know it's crazy. Sarah gestured helplessly. I found her. Miss Johnson. Andrea set down her clipboard. Fostering requires extensive background checks. Home studies. Financial stability. It's a long process. Sarah looked down at her cleaning uniform, still dirty from work. Her worn shoes. Her calloused hands. The officers said you live alone? Work nights? Yes. No family support? My mother died 2 years ago. Andrea's face softened slightly. I understand you feel a connection to this baby. That's natural. But we need to do what's best for her. Through the window, the baby started to cry. Sarah's arms ached to hold her. Can I at least see her again? Before. Andrea hesitated, then nodded. Briefly. Then we need your formal statement at the police station. Sarah walked into the nursery area. The baby's cries quieted as she approached the bassinet. "Hey there," Sarah whispered. "Remember me?" Tiny fingers wrapped around her thumb. Sarah felt something break open in her chest. In that moment, she knew. She couldn't let this baby disappear into the system. Couldn't let her become another lost child. Whatever it took, whatever she had to do, she would find a way to keep her safe, to give her the home she deserved. The sun was rising outside the hospital windows, painting the snow-covered city gold. A new day, a new beginning. Sarah squeezed the baby's hand gently. "I'm not giving up on you," she whispered. "I promise." The fluorescent lights in the police station made Sarah's eyes burn. She'd been sitting in the hard plastic chair for 3 hours, repeating her story to different officers. The clock on the wall read 10:47 a.m. "Miss Johnson," a detective sat down across from her, manila folder in hand. "I'm Detective Morris. We need to go over your statement one more time." Sarah's uniform still smelled like cleaning products. She hadn't slept in over 24 hours. "I've already told for people what happened. Standard procedure." He opened the folder. "You said you found the baby at approximately 3:15 a.m.? "Yes." "In the loading dock of the Morgan Stanley building?" "Yes." "And instead of calling 911 immediately, you took the baby to your home?" Sarah's hands clenched in her lap. "I wanted to get her warm, feed her." "Did it occur to you that by removing her from the scene, you might be interfering with a criminal investigation?" The question hit her like a slap. I was trying to help." "Miss Johnson." Detective Morris leaned forward. "We need to be very clear here. Did you have any prior knowledge of this baby? Any contact with the mother?" "What? No." "Are you certain? Because if you're protecting someone—" "I found her in the garbage." Sarah's voice cracked. "That's all I know." The detective made a note. "You work nights as a cleaner?" "Yes." "For 3 years now. Any criminal record?" "No." "Drug use?" "No." He consulted his papers. "Your mother died recently?" Sarah felt tears threatening. 2 years ago. Cancer. Father. Left when I was 5. Haven't seen him since." More notes. More questions. Sarah's head pounded. Her phone buzzed, a text from her supervisor. "Miss Shift. Don't bother coming back." Just like that. 3 years of work gone. The detective was still talking. "We'll need to verify your employment history, bank records, any connections to the building or other employees. I need to see her." Sarah cut him off. "Who?" "The baby. Please. Just tell me she's okay." Detective Morris closed his folder. "That's not possible right now. Child Services has taken custody. But I found her. Miss Johnson." His voice was firm. "You're not related to this child. You have no legal standing here. The best thing you can do is cooperate fully with our investigation." Sarah stood up suddenly, her chair scraping against the floor. "I need air." She stumbled out of the interview room, down the hallway, through the station doors. The cold hit her like a wall. Her phone buzzed again. The landlord, rent past due. Eviction notice pending. Sarah leaned against the brick wall, trying to breathe. Everything was falling apart. "Miss Johnson." A voice made her turn. Andrea Mills, the social worker from the hospital, stood there with her clipboard. "Are you all right?" "They think I had something to do with it." Sarah's voice shook. "They think I knew about her. It's protocol. They have to investigate every angle." Andrea hesitated. "I came to tell you. The baby's doing well. All her tests came back normal." Sarah felt some of the tension leave her body. "Can I see her?" "That's what I needed to discuss." Andrea gestured to a nearby bench. "Let's sit." They sat in the cold, watching traffic pass. Andrea pulled out some papers. "You mentioned interest in fostering," she said. Sarah sat up straighter. "Yes. I've reviewed your preliminary information." Andrea's voice was gentle. "There are some concerns." "What concerns?" "Financial stability, for one. You just lost your job. Your rent is overdue. You live in a one-room apartment with inadequate heating." Each word felt like a blow. "I can get another job," Sarah said. "A better apartment." "There's also the matter of support system. No family, limited social connections." "I have friends. Maria, she has kids. She can help." "Miss Johnson." Andrea touched her arm. "I understand how you feel. But fostering isn't just about good intentions. It's about providing a stable, secure environment." Sarah pulled away. "And I can't do that because I'm poor." That's not Dash. What about love? Sarah's voice rose. What about caring? Does that not matter? Of course it matters. Andrea sighed. But the system has requirements. Standards that have to be met. Sarah thought about the baby's tiny fingers gripping her thumb. The trust in those eyes. What if? She swallowed hard. What if I could meet those standards? Andrea looked surprised. What do you mean? Tell me what I need. A better job? I'll find one. A new apartment? I'll move. Whatever it takes. Sarah. Andrea's voice softened. Even if you could manage all that, there's no guarantee. There are waiting lists, home studies, background checks. I don't care. Sarah stood up. That baby was thrown away like garbage. The system you're talking about? It didn't save her. I did. Andrea was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Finally, she pulled a card from her pocket. There's a preliminary hearing tomorrow morning. Family court, 9 a.m. She handed Sarah the card. If you're serious about this, you should be there. Sarah clutched the card. I'll be there. And Sarah? Andrea stood up. Find a lawyer. You're going to need one. Sarah watched her walk away, the card trembling in her hand. A lawyer. She could barely afford food. Her phone buzzed yet again. Maria, you okay? Need anything? Sarah looked at the police station, then down at Andrea's card. She thought about the baby, alone in some foster home tonight. She texted back, need a miracle? Walking to the subway, Sarah passed a church. The morning service was just letting out people streaming down the steps in their Sunday best. She hadn't prayed since her mother died, hadn't believed it would make a difference. But now she stopped, looking up at the stone building. Through the windows, she could see candles flickering. Sarah climbed the steps slowly. Inside, the air smelled of incense and wood polish. She sat in the back pew, the wood smooth and worn beneath her. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, painting colors on the floor. I know I haven't been here, she whispered. I know I haven't asked for anything. But that baby, she needs someone. She needs me. Her voice echoed in the empty church. Please, she said, help me find a way. The candles flickered. Outside, a siren wailed in the distance. Sarah stood up, straightening her uniform. She had 24 hours until the hearing. 24 hours to figure out how to convince a judge that a poor, single, jobless woman could be a mother. 24 hours to prove that love could be enough. She walked out of the church into the cold morning. The city moved around her, people hurrying to work, cars honking, life going on. Sarah touched the card in her pocket. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. She would be there, and she would fight. The family courthouse loomed over Sarah like a mountain of gray stone and judgment. She tugged at her borrowed suit jacket, Maria's, slightly too tight across the shoulders. Her only dress shoes pinched her feet. Inside, the security guard barely glanced at her ID. Fourth floor, he grunted. Room 412. The elevator smelled like furniture polish and anxiety. Sarah watched the numbers climb. 1, 2, 3. Her stomach lurched with each floor. Room 412 was already crowded when she arrived. Lawyers in expensive suits. Social workers with their ever-present clipboards. A court officer by the door. Sarah. Andrea waved her over. I wasn't sure you'd come. I said I would. Sarah's voice sounded smaller than she intended. Andrea lowered her voice. Did you find a lawyer? Sarah shook her head. She'd spent the night calling legal aid offices. All had waiting lists weeks long. Miss Johnson, a tall man in a crisp suit, approached. I'm James Warner, representing Child Protective Services. His handshake was firm, impersonal. Sarah noticed his gold watch, probably worth more than she made in 3 months. The judge will want to know your intentions, he said. I strongly advise against pursuing any custody claim. It will only complicate matters. Before Sarah could respond, a door opened. All rise. The courtroom fell silent as Judge Eleanor Martinez entered. She was older than Sarah expected, with steel gray hair and sharp eyes behind reading glasses. Be seated, she said. Case number 2025 J147. In the matter of Baby Doe, found abandoned, Sarah barely heard the legal terminology that followed. Her eyes fixed on the social worker holding a small bundle. The baby, sleeping peacefully, unaware of the drama unfolding around her. Miss Johnson, the judge's voice snapped her attention back. You're the individual who found the infant? Sarah stood on shaky legs. Yes, Your Honor. And you wish to petition for temporary custody? I. Sarah swallowed hard. Yes. Judge Martinez peered at her over her glasses. Are you represented by counsel? No, Your Honor. I can't afford. Miss Johnson is appearing pro se. Warner cut in smoothly. We have concerns about her suitability as a potential guardian. The judge nodded. Proceed with your evidence, Mr. Warner. What followed was a systematic dismantling of Sarah's life. Her job loss, her financial struggles, her lack of family support. Warner presented each fact like a weapon. Miss Johnson's apartment has been deemed unsuitable for a child, he said, showing photos. Inadequate heating, potential safety hazards. I can move, Sarah interrupted. I'll find a better place. With what income? Warner didn't wait for an answer. Furthermore, Miss Johnson's actions in taking the infant home rather than calling authorities immediately raise serious concerns about her judgment. I was trying to help. The words burst out before Sarah could stop them. Miss Johnson, Judge Martinez's voice held a warning. You'll have your chance to speak. Warner continued, presenting bank statements showing Sarah's overdrawn accounts, rent notices, medical bills from her mother's illness. Finally, he turned to the judge. Your Honor, while Miss Johnson's intentions may be admirable, she is clearly unable to provide a stable environment for a child. We recommend immediate placement in the foster care system. Miss Johnson, the judge looked at Sarah. Do you have any response? Sarah stood again, her legs trembling. The courtroom swam before her eyes. Her voice cracked. She started again. I know how this looks. I know I don't have money or a nice house or a fancy job. She looked at the baby, still sleeping peacefully. But I know what it's like to be thrown away. My father left when I was 5, just walked out one morning and never came back. The courtroom was silent now. Even Warner had stopped shuffling his papers. My mother, Sarah's voice strengthened. She worked 3 jobs to keep me fed. We didn't have much, but we had love. She taught me that's what matters most. She turned to the judge. I found that baby in the garbage. Like she was nothing. But she's not nothing. She's everything. And maybe I don't have much to give her, but I have love. I have so much love to give. Tears ran down her face now, but she kept going. I'll work 2 jobs, 3 jobs. I'll move wherever I need to move. I'll do whatever it takes. Just please don't let her disappear into the system. Judge Martinez was quiet for a long moment. Then, Mr. Warner, does CPS have any evidence of the birth mother's identity? No, Your Honor. Security cameras in the area were non-functional that night. And the baby's health? Andrea stepped forward. All medical tests normal, Your Honor. She's approximately 3 days old. No signs of abuse or neglect prior to abandonment. The judge removed her glasses, rubbing her eyes. Miss Johnson, you understand that even temporary custody would require significant changes in your situation? Yes, Your Honor. Employment, housing, child care arrangements, all would need to be addressed. I understand. Judge Martinez looked at the baby, then back at Sarah. I'm going to do something unusual here. Miss Johnson, I'm granting you 2 weeks. Warner started to protest, but the judge held up her hand. 2 weeks to show this court you can provide a stable environment. You'll need to secure employment, find suitable housing, and demonstrate you can meet the baby's basic needs. Sarah's heart leaped. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me yet. The judge's voice was stern. This is temporary. CPS will conduct regular checks. Any issues, any concerns, and the baby goes immediately into foster care. Understood? Yes, Your Honor. Additionally, you'll need to attend parenting classes. And I'm assigning a court-appointed guardian ad litem to represent the baby's interests. Sarah nodded, barely hearing the rest of the judge's instructions. 2 weeks. She had 2 weeks to rebuild her entire life. One more thing. Judge Martinez fixed her with a sharp look. What do you plan to call her? Sarah looked at the baby, now awake and blinking at the bright courtroom lights. In that moment she knew. Hope, she said softly. Her name is Hope. The judge's face softened slightly. Appropriate. Court is adjourned until February 20th, 9 a.m. Don't disappoint me, Miss Johnson. The gavel cracked like thunder. People started moving, talking, shuffling papers. Andrea touched Sarah's arm. Congratulations. But you know this is just the beginning, right? Sarah watched as the social worker brought Hope closer. Tiny fingers reached out, grasping at the air. I know, Sarah said, but it's a beginning. She had 2 weeks to prove herself. 2 weeks to become the mother Hope deserved. 2 weeks to make a miracle happen. Sarah stared at the now hiring sign in the diner window. 5 days had passed since the hearing. 5 days of rejection after rejection. No experience, they'd say. Or, positions just been filled. Or worst of all, silence. Just a look at her worn clothes and tired face before shaking their heads. The bell chimed as she pushed open the door. A blast of warm air carried the smell of coffee and grease. Help wanted? She asked the woman behind the counter. The manager, her name tag read Betty, looked her up and down. Waitressing experience? No, but I'm a fast learner. Got a baby at home, right? Sarah froze. How did you dash, small neighborhood? Betty wiped her hands on her apron. News travels. You're that cleaning lady who found the baby in the trash. Yes. Sarah lifted her chin. I'm trying to make a better life for her. Betty sighed. Honey, I got 3 kids myself. Single mother. Know what that means? Means when they're sick, you gotta stay home. When the babysitter cancels, you gotta stay home. Can't have unreliable staff here. I'll figure it out. Please. I just need a chance. Sorry. Betty's face softened slightly. Try them all. They're always hiring. Outside, Sarah checked her phone. 3 missed calls from Andrea. A text from Maria. How's the job hunt? Her phone buzzed again, the social worker making her daily check. Miss Johnson, this is Karen from CPS. Required home visit today at 2 p.m. Please confirm. Sarah looked at her watch. 1:15 p.m. The apartment was a mess. Baby supplies piled everywhere, donated by Maria's church group. She'd need to clean up before Hope's cry crackled through the baby monitor app. Sarah had left her with Maria while job hunting, but guilt gnawed at her stomach. She should be there, not out begging for minimum wage jobs. The subway ride to Maria's felt endless. Each stop brought a new worry. 9 days left to prove herself. 9 days to find a job, an apartment, a miracle. Maria opened her door before Sarah could knock. She's been fussy all morning. Hope's cries led Sarah to the living room. The baby lay in a borrowed bassinet, face red with effort. Hey, sweet girl. Sarah scooped her up, breathing in that perfect baby smell. Mama's here. Hope's cries softened to whimpers. Maria watched them with worried eyes. Any luck today? No. Sarah bounced Hope gently. But I'll try again tomorrow. Sarah. Maria hesitated. My cousin Miguel, he works construction, says they need office help. Filing phones? Really? Hope had fallen asleep against Sarah's chest. Could you ask him? Already did. Interview tomorrow at 9. Sarah felt tears threatening. Maria, don't. Maria waved her off. That's what friends are for. Now go. CPS coming, right? The apartment was cold when Sarah got home. The super had promised to fix the heating yesterday. Another broken promise. She laid Hope in the crib, donated by Maria's church, and started cleaning. Hide the unpaid bills. Straighten the baby clothes. Make everything look stable, secure, perfect. The knock came at exactly 2 p.m. Karen from CPS stood there with her clipboard and judging eyes. Miss Johnson. She stepped inside, already taking notes. Temperature seems low. The super's coming to fix it. The lie tasted bitter. Karen moved through the apartment like a detective at a crime scene. Checking cupboards. Opening the fridge. Examining the crib. Formula supply low, she noted. Diapers? Getting more tomorrow. After the interview. If she got the job. If they paid in advance. Miss Johnson. Karen sat at the kitchen table. It's been 5 days. Have you secured employment? I have an interview tomorrow. Housing. I'm looking. Childcare arrangements? My friend Maria helps dash professional childcare. Karen interrupted. Licensed facility. Sarah's stomach clenched. Those cost dash, yes they do. Karen made another note. As does formula. Diapers. Medical care. Have you considered that perhaps dash? Hope started crying. Sarah moved to the crib, but Karen held up her hand. Let her cry. We need to discuss this. Sarah's hands curled into fists. She needs me. What she needs is stability. Karen's voice was professionally detached. Security. A proper home environment. Hope's cries grew louder. Sarah could see her tiny face turning red, arms reaching out. Miss Johnson, sit down. Instead, Sarah moved to the crib, lifting Hope in her arms. No. Karen blinked. Excuse me? I said no. Sarah's voice shook. You don't get to sit there with your clipboard and tell me not to comfort my baby. She's not your dash, she is. Sarah held Hope closer. Maybe not legally, not yet. But in every way that matters, she's mine. And I will never, ever let her cry alone. Hope quieted, snuggling into Sarah's neck. Karen watched them, her professional mask slipping slightly. You have 9 days left, she said finally. The judge was very clear about the requirements. I know. If you can't meet them, Karen stood up. There are good foster families waiting. Stable homes. 2 parents, good incomes. Sarah thought about her own mother, working 3 jobs, living on coffee and determination, teaching Sarah that love was worth any sacrifice. I'll meet them, she said. Whatever it takes. Karen headed for the door, then paused. Miss Johnson? Yes. That construction company interview tomorrow? Where's something professional? First impressions matter. After she left, Sarah looked down at Hope, now sleeping peacefully. Just us again, sweet girl. She touched the baby's perfect cheek. But we'll make it. Somehow. Her phone buzzed. A text from her landlord. Eviction notice posted. 72 hours. Sarah sank into the second-hand rocking chair, still holding Hope. Outside, snow began to fall. The room grew colder. But Hope was warm against her chest, breathing softly, trusting her completely. Your grandma used to say, anything worth having costs something, Sarah whispered. I guess you're going to cost me everything. She rocked slowly, watching the snow fall. Worth it, though. She kissed Hope's forehead. You're worth everything. Tomorrow, she would face the world again. Tomorrow, she would fight harder, try harder, be better. But tonight, in this moment, she held her daughter and let herself believe that love really could be enough, even if the price was everything she had. The eviction notice crackled under Sarah's fingers as she pulled it off her door. 3 days. The words blurred through her tears. Ma'am? The super stood behind her, shifting uncomfortably. Boss says I gotta change the locks on Friday. Sarah clutched Hope closer to her chest. I just need more time. Ain't up to me. He looked at the baby, then away. Sorry. Inside, the apartment felt smaller than ever. Boxes of baby supplies crowded every corner. Donations from Maria's church group. A reminder of everything she stood to lose. Her phone rang. The construction company. Miss Johnson. A man's voice, cold and professional. This is Robert Kane from Metro Construction. Sarah's heart raced. Yesterday's interview had seemed to go well. Yes. We've reviewed your application. Unfortunately, she stopped listening. Just another rejection. Another door closing. Hope stirred against her chest, making small, hungry noises. Sarah checked the formula can almost empty. The last $20 in her account would have to go to formula instead of food for herself. Her phone buzzed again. Andrea. Sarah? Where are you? The parenting class started 10 minutes ago. Sarah looked at the clock. 10 a.m. She'd forgotten. I can't. Her voice cracked. I got another rejection and an eviction notice. And Hope needs formula. Stay there. Andrea's voice softened. I'm coming over. Sarah sank into the rocking chair, holding Hope close. The baby's warmth was the only thing keeping her from completely falling apart. 20 minutes later, Andrea knocked. She took in Sarah's tear-stained face, the eviction notice, the nearly empty formula can. Okay. She set her bag down. First things first. When did you last eat? Sarah tried to remember. Yesterday? Maybe. Andrea pulled out her phone. I'm ordering food. Then we're going to talk options. There are no options. Sarah's voice was hollow. I failed. I can't find a job. Can't keep my apartment. Can't even make it to the stupid parenting classes. Sarah Dash. Maybe they're right. The words tasted like ash. Maybe Hope deserves better. A real family. People who can't. Hope started crying. Sharp, hungry wails that pierced Sarah's heart. Here, Andrea pulled formula from her bag. Feed her. Then we'll figure this out. Sarah's hands shook as she prepared the bottle. Hope latched on immediately, tiny fingers curling around Sarah's thumb. Look at how she looks at you, Andrea said softly. That's not nothing. It's not enough. Sarah couldn't stop the tears now. Love isn't enough. The judge wants stability. A job. A home. Things I can't. A knock interrupted her. Not the door, the window. Sarah turned. Through the frosted glass, she could see a familiar face. Maria. She opened the window. What are you doing on the fire escape? Maria climbed in, shaking snow from her coat. Emergency friend intervention. Andrea called. She set down a large paper bag. First food. Real food. Not that instant noodle garbage you've been living on. The smell of chicken soup filled the apartment. Sarah's stomach growled traitorously. Eat. Maria pushed a container into her hands. Then we're calling my cousin Pablo. The one from the construction company? They already rejected me. Not that cousin. The other one. He manages apartments in Queens. Hope finished her bottle. Sarah burped her automatically, her mind racing. Queens? That's cheaper than Brooklyn, Andrea cut in. And Pablo often works with Section 8 housing. But Sarah looked around her tiny apartment. Moving costs money. Security deposits. The church has an emergency fund. Maria's voice was firm. And Pablo can work with that. I can't take charity. It's not charity. Maria took Hope, expertly settling the baby against her shoulder. It's community. Family. The way things should be. Sarah's protest died as Hope cooed happily in Maria's arms. The baby was thriving, despite everything. Despite her. The hearing's in 4 days, Andrea said gently. The judge needs to see progress. Real progress. And you've been trying to do everything alone, Maria added. That stops now. Sarah looked at the eviction notice, still crumpled in her hand. I'm scared. Good. Maria bounced Hope gently. Means you're a real mother. Now eat your soup. The food was warm, filling. Real sustenance after days of barely eating. Andrea pulled out her laptop. Okay, let's make a plan. Real solutions, not just dreams for the next hour. They worked. Maria made calls. Andrea wrote lists. Hope slept peacefully, unaware of the adults fighting for her future. Pablo can show us apartments tomorrow, Maria reported. 3 possibilities, all near the subway. I found 2 job training programs that offer childcare assistance, Andrea added, and a women's support group for single mothers. Sarah looked at her notes. Small steps, possible steps, not just dreams, but the hearing. Her voice wavered. 4 days isn't enough time to. Then we'll ask for more time. Andrea's voice was firm. Show the judge you're making real progress. Taking real steps. With help, Maria emphasized. No more lone wolf garbage. Hope stirred, whimpering softly. Sarah reached for her automatically. See? Maria smiled. Already a natural. Sarah settled Hope against her chest, breathing in that perfect baby smell. I can't lose her. Then don't. Andrea closed her laptop. Fight. But fight smart. Use the resources available. Accept help. Let people love you both, Maria added softly. Sarah looked down at Hope's sleeping face. Thought about her own mother, working 3 jobs, but never alone. Always part of a community. Okay. She took a deep breath. Where do we start? First pack. Maria stood up. You're staying with me until we find you a new place. No arguments. Then tomorrow we see Pablo's apartments, Andrea added. I'll come with you. Make sure they meet CPS standards. And tonight? Sarah asked. Tonight you rest. Maria squeezed her shoulder. Let us handle things for a while. Hope sighed in her sleep, completely trusting, completely at peace. Sarah thought about the past 2 weeks. The endless rejections, the mounting fears, the crushing loneliness. But now, watching Maria pack boxes while Andrea made calls, she felt something new. Not hope. Not yet. But possibility. Maybe love wasn't enough on its own. But love plus help? Love plus community? Maybe that could be everything. The courthouse felt different this time. Same marble floors. Same echoing halls. But Sarah walked differently now. Head high. Hope secure in her arms, ready. Andrea stood beside her, clutching a thick folder of documents. Sarah nodded, adjusting Hope's tiny hat. The baby was awake, taking in the bustling corridor with wide eyes. "Remember," Andrea said quietly, "just tell the truth. Your truth." The courtroom doors opened. Same faces as before. Warner from CPS, Karen with her clipboard, other lawyers and social workers. But now Maria sat in the gallery, along with Pablo and 3 women from the Single Mothers Support Group. "All rise." Judge Martinez entered, looking exactly as Sarah remembered. Steel gray hair, sharp eyes, zero patience for excuses. "Be seated," she said. Case number 2025-J147 continues. Status report on baby Hope. Warner stood first. "Your Honor, while Miss Johnson has made some efforts in the past 2 weeks, CPS maintains serious concerns about Dash. Let Miss Johnson speak for herself." The judge cut him off. "Well," Sarah stood carefully, still holding Hope. "Your Honor, may I proceed?" Sarah took a deep breath. "2 weeks ago, you gave me a chance. Asked me to prove I could provide stability for Hope." She looked down at the baby, who grabbed her finger with surprising strength. "I didn't make it. Not the way I planned." Warner smiled slightly. The judge's expression didn't change. "I lost my apartment," Sarah continued. "Couldn't find a job. Failed at being the perfect single mother I thought I needed to be." The courtroom was silent now. Even Hope seemed to sense the tension, staying quiet in Sarah's arms. "But I learned something important." Sarah's voice strengthened. "I learned I don't have to do this alone." She gestured to Maria, to Pablo, to Andrea. "These people, my community, they showed me what real stability looks like. It's not just money or a fancy apartment. It's having support, having family, even if not by blood." Sarah shifted Hope gently. "Thanks to them, I have an apartment in Queens. Small, but clean. Heat works. Building has daycare facilities. Pablo, Maria's cousin, he's the manager. Working with Section 8 housing to make it affordable." The judge made a note. "Employment? Starting Monday at the Women's Resource Center. Part-time administrative work with on-site childcare. Plus evening classes in medical billing through their job training program. Income will still be limited," Warner interjected. "Yes." Sarah didn't back down. "But I have a budget now. Andrea helped me set it up. Church assistance for emergencies. Food bank access. WIC for Hope's formula. It's not perfect, but it's planned. Stable." Judge Martinez leaned forward. "Miss Johnson, raising a child is more than just logistics. What makes you think you're qualified to be this baby's mother?" The question hit hard. Sarah looked at Hope, really looked at her. Perfect tiny fingers, soft breath against her chest, complete trust in her eyes. "My own father left when I was 5, Sarah said quietly. "Just walked out one morning. Never came back." She felt tears threatening, but kept going. "My mother worked 3 jobs to keep me fed. We were poor: food stamps, secondhand clothes, free lunch at school. But every night, no matter how tired she was, she'd hold me. Tell me I was loved. Tell me I mattered." Hope squirmed slightly. Sarah adjusted her position automatically, naturally. "That's what I want for Hope. Not just food and shelter. Not just survival. I want her to know she matters. That she's not trash to be thrown away. That she's precious and loved and worth every sacrifice." Sarah's voice cracked. "I can't give her everything. Can't promise she'll never struggle or hurt or wish things were different. But I can promise she'll never doubt she's loved. Never wonder if she matters. Never feel thrown away again." The judge was silent for a long moment. "Mr. Warner?" He stood, shuffling papers. "Your Honor, while Miss Johnson's sentiment is admirable, the fact remains that her situation is far from ideal. A single mother, limited income, relying heavily on community assistance dash, like my mother did," Sarah interrupted. "Like thousands of mothers do. We survive. We make it work. We love our children through the hard times." "Miss Johnson," the judge's voice held a warning. "I'm sorry, Your Honor." Sarah took a deep breath. "But Hope isn't just a case number. She's not just a problem to be solved. She's my daughter. Maybe not by birth, but by choice. By love. By the fact that I will fight for her every day of my life. Hope chose that moment to coo softly, reaching up to pat Sarah's cheek with tiny fingers. The courtroom fell silent. Judge Martinez removed her glasses, rubbing her eyes. When she looked up, her expression was unreadable. Mr. Warner, does CPS have any progress locating the birth mother? No, Your Honor. Security footage proved inconclusive. No witnesses have come forward. And the baby's health? Karen stood. All checkups normal, Your Honor. She's meeting developmental milestones. Show secure attachment to Miss Johnson. The judge nodded slowly. Miss Johnson, you understand that if I grant you custody, CPS will continue monitoring? Regular checks, mandatory parenting classes, financial oversight. Sarah's heart leaped. Yes, Your Honor. You'll need to maintain employment, stable housing, proper childcare arrangements. I understand. No margin for error. No excuses. No excuses, Sarah agreed. Just love, and work, and community. Judge Martinez picked up her gavel. Mr. Warner, any final objections? He hesitated, then sat down. No, Your Honor. The judge looked at Hope, then at Sarah. For a moment, something softened in her stern face. Miss Johnson, I've been doing this job for 20 years. Seen thousands of cases. Know what usually happens to babies found in situations like this. Sarah held her breath. But I've also seen what love can do. What determination and community support can accomplish. The judge raised her gavel. Temporary custody is granted to Sarah Johnson, subject to CPS supervision and quarterly review. Permanent adoption proceedings may be initiated after 6 months of stable placement. The gavel cracked like thunder. Sarah heard Maria cry out in joy, felt Andrea's hand on her shoulder. But all she could focus on was Hope, looking up at her with complete trust. It's official now, sweet girl, she whispered. You're really mine? Hope smiled, her first real smile, and the whole world shifted into place. They weren't just survivor and savior anymore. They were family. The courthouse steps felt different under Sarah's feet as she walked out into the cold February morning. Hope slept against her chest, wrapped warm in a new blanket, a gift from the women's support group. Sarah, Maria called from behind. Wait up! Sarah turned, seeing the small crowd following her, Maria, Andrea, Pablo, the women from the support group. Their faces shone with joy and tears. I can't believe it, Sarah whispered. Her voice shook. She's really mine. Maria hugged her carefully, mindful of Hope. Believe it. You did it. We did it, Sarah corrected. I couldn't have dashed Miss Johnson. A court clerk hurried down the steps. Judge Martinez would like to see you. In her chambers. Sarah's heart stopped. Did something go wrong? Just come with me, please. She followed the clerk back inside, through marble hallways to a heavy wooden door marked Judge Eleanor Martinez Family Court. The judge's chambers were smaller than Sarah expected. Warm wood paneling, photos of children on the walls, a desk covered in files. Miss Johnson. Judge Martinez gestured to a chair. Please sit. Sarah sat carefully, adjusting Hope in her arms. The baby stirred but didn't wake. First, the judge said, Congratulations. You earned this. Thank you, Your Honor. Eleanor, please. We're not in court now. She leaned back, studying Sarah's face. I have a proposition for you. Sarah tensed. About Hope? About you. The judge smiled slightly. My previous clerk is leaving for maternity leave. Position opens next week. Basic administrative work, filing, scheduling. Pays better than the Women's Center. Sarah's mouth fell open. You're offering me a job? Court needs good people. People who understand what our families go through. The judge nodded at Hope. People who know what it means to fight for love. But I don't have experience, Dash. You have life experience. The rest we can teach. She pulled out a folder. Benefits include health insurance, on-site daycare, regular hours. Sarah looked down at Hope, still sleeping peacefully. Why? Because 15 years ago, I was you. The judge's voice softened. Single mother. Struggling. Someone gave me a chance. Time to pass it forward. Tears spilled down Sarah's cheeks. I don't know what to say. Say yes. The judge handed her a tissue. Start Monday? Sarah wiped her eyes, trying to find words. Yes. Thank you. Yes. Good. The judge stood. HR will contact you tomorrow with paperwork. Oh, and Sarah? Yes. The daycare here? Best in the city. Hope will be well looked after. Outside the chambers, Sarah leaned against the wall, overwhelmed. Hope stirred, opening her eyes. You'll never believe what just happened, sweet girl, Sarah whispered. There you are. Andrea hurried up. Everything okay? Sarah told her about the job offer. Andrea's eyes widened. Sarah, that's amazing. Court jobs are so hard to get. I know. Sarah adjusted Hope's blanket. It doesn't feel real. Better get used to it. Andrea checked her watch. Ready to see your new apartment? Pablo's waiting. The subway ride to Queens felt like traveling to a new world. Hope stayed awake, fascinated by the lights and movement. The apartment building wasn't fancy. Red brick, 6 stories. But it was clean, well-maintained. Children played in a small courtyard despite the cold. 3rd floor, Pablo said, leading them up. In unit, gets good light. He unlocked the door. Welcome home. Sarah stepped inside, holding her breath. The apartment was small but bright. 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, living room with windows facing east. The walls were freshly painted pale yellow. Heatworks, Pablo said proudly. New security system. Laundry in basement. And look dash, he opened a door off the living room. A small alcove, just big enough for a crib. Perfect nursery, he said. Maria told me you'd need one. Sarah walked into the alcove. Someone Maria's church group, probably, had painted a rainbow on one wall. Rents arranged through Section 8, Pablo continued. Just need your signature. Can move in tomorrow. Tomorrow? Sarah turned. That fast? Why wait? He grinned. Besides, Maria's already got the moving truck scheduled. As if on cue, Maria burst in carrying boxes. 3 women from the support group followed, arms full of baby supplies. Surprise! Maria set down her box. Hope needs a proper nursery. For the next few hours, the apartment buzzed with activity. Women unpacked boxes, arranged furniture, debated crib placement. Someone ordered pizza. Someone else brought coffee. Sarah sat in a rocking chair, another church donation, feeding hope and watching her community build her home. Feeling overwhelmed? Andrea sat beside her. A little? Sarah smiled. Okay, a lot. Normal. Andrea touched Hope's tiny foot. You went from invisible cleaning lady to mother and court clerk in 2 weeks. That's a lot of change. Good change, though. The best kind. Andrea stood. Need anything from the store? We're making a supply run. Sarah looked around the apartment. At the women hanging curtains and assembling furniture. At Pablo fixing a loose cabinet door. At Hope, content in her arms, no, she said softly. I have everything I need. Later, after everyone left, Sarah stood in the nursery alcove. The moon cast rainbow shadows from the painted wall. Hope slept in her new crib, surrounded by love made tangible. Handmade blankets, donated toys, carefully arranged supplies. Welcome home, sweet girl, Sarah whispered. She thought about the loading dock where she'd found Hope. The garbage bags, the bitter cold. Now Hope slept warm and safe, wanted and loved. Not just by Sarah, but by a whole community. Sarah touched the rainbow on the wall. 2 weeks ago, she'd been invisible. Alone. Now, Hope sighed in her sleep. Tiny fingers curled around her blanket. Now they were home. Not just an apartment. Not just 4 walls and a roof. A real home, built on love and hope and the strength of community. Sarah smiled in the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new worries, new fears. But tonight, in this moment, everything was perfect. Everything was miracle enough. 1 month later, Sarah's alarm went off at 6 a.m. No more night shifts. No more cleaning other people's offices. She hit snooze once, savoring the quiet moment. Hope would wake soon. She kept to a schedule now, something the parenting classes had helped establish. Sarah smiled in the dark, listening to the baby's soft breathing through the monitor. Her court uniform hung ready on the closet door. Black pants, white shirt, sensible shoes. A real job. A respectable job. Sometimes she still couldn't believe it. Right on schedule, Hope started making her morning noises. Not crying, just small sounds announcing she was ready to start the day. Good morning, sweet girl. Sarah lifted her from the crib, breathing in that perfect baby smell. Ready for another big day? Hope smiled. She did that a lot now and grabbed for Sarah's hair. At 6 weeks old, she was growing fast, already fitting into 3-month clothes. Their morning routine flowed smoothly. Diaper change, bottle, dress Hope in one of the cute outfits from the church donation box. Pack the diaper bag while Hope watched from her bouncer. Miss your mama? The daycare worker greeted them at 8 a.m. sharp. Hope reached for her, already comfortable with the familiar face. She just ate, Sarah said, handing over the diaper bag. And there's extra formula dash. We've got this. The worker smiled. Go. Be amazing. The courthouse felt like home now. Sarah knew the security guards by name, knew which elevator ran fastest, which water fountain worked best. Morning, Sarah. Judge Martinez, Eleanor now, called from her office. Ready for the Thompson hearing? Files on your desk. Sarah smiled. Coffee too? You're a lifesaver. The judge paused. How's our girl? Growing. Smiling. Perfect. Good. Eleanor squeezed her shoulder. Don't forget, performance review next week. Raise kicks in after 90 days. Sarah's desk faced a window now. No more dark offices at 3 a.m. She could see trees, sky, people going about their lives. Her phone buzzed with the group chat. Maria, Andrea, the support group women. They shared everything now. Baby milestones, job frustrations, daily victories. Hope's first doctor checkup today, she texted. After work, responses flooded in immediately. Good luck. Tell us how it goes. Need a ride? Pictures, please. Sarah smiled, setting her phone down. Files waited. Courts never slept, and families never stopped needing help. She understood that better now, sitting on this side of the system. Every case that crossed her desk was someone's story, someone's hope. The morning passed in a blur of routine tasks. Filing motions, scheduling hearings, answering phones. Simple work, but important. Work that helped families like hers. At lunch, she visited Hope in the daycare. The baby lit up when she saw her, reaching with tiny hands. She's doing great, the worker said. Such a happy baby. Sarah held Hope close, breathing her in, because she knows she's loved. The afternoon brought more work, more files, more families needing help. Sarah handled each case carefully, remembering how it felt to be on the other side. At 4 p.m., they headed to the pediatrician. Hope's first official checkup since leaving hospital care. The waiting room was crowded. Other mothers smiled at Hope, complimented her outfit. Sarah sat straighter, proud. No more feeling invisible. Hope Johnson, the nurse called. The examination room was bright, cheerful. Hope lay on the paper-covered table, kicking happily as the doctor checked her. Weight's perfect, the doctor said, meeting all milestones. You're doing a great job, Mom. Mom! The word still gave Sarah chills. Really? She couldn't help asking. She's okay. The doctor smiled knowingly. More than okay. She's thriving. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. Outside, the February sun was setting. Sarah buckled Hope in her car seat. Maria had taught her how, and drove carefully home. Their apartment welcomed them with warmth. The heat worked. The lights worked. Everything worked. Hope played on her mat while Sarah made dinner. Real food now, not just ramen. The parenting group had taught her simple recipes. A knock at the door. Maria, just checking in. She scooped up Hope, who gurgled happily. How's my favorite miracle? Perfect. Sarah showed her the doctor's report. Everything's perfect. Maria sat in the rocking chair, bouncing Hope gently. Remember that night? When you found her? Every day. Sarah touched Hope's cheek. Sometimes it feels like a dream. Not a dream. Maria smiled. A miracle. But you know what the real miracle is? What? You. Both of you. Finding each other. Making this beautiful life. Hope reached for Sarah, and Maria handed her over. The baby snuggled close, yawning. Bedtime, sweet girl? Sarah stood, moving toward the nursery. The rainbow on the wall glowed in the evening light. Their nighttime routine was sacred now. Bath. Bottle. Story from one of the donated books. Hope's eyes drooped as Sarah rocked her. Once upon a time, Sarah whispered, there was a woman who thought she was invisible, and a baby who needed to be found. Hope was almost asleep now, tiny fingers curled around Sarah's thumb. But they found each other, and they weren't invisible anymore. They were everything. Sarah laid Hope in her crib, tucking the blanket around her. The mobile above played softly, a gift from the court staff. Tomorrow would bring more work, more challenges, more moments of doubt and fear. But tonight, watching Hope sleep in their warm, safe home, Sarah knew the truth. They weren't just survivor and savior anymore. Not just a woman and a baby who found each other in the dark. They were mother and daughter. Family. Miracle. And their story was just beginning. Sarah touched the rainbow on the wall, remembering that cold night in the loading dock. The garbage bags. The tiny cry that changed everything. "Sweet dreams, my Hope," she whispered. Outside their window, the city moved on. People lived their lives, fought their battles, found their way. But here, in this small apartment filled with love and community and second chances, something beautiful had grown from darkness. A family, a home, a new dawn. And it was more than enough. It was everything